So imagine yourself in a situation like being trapped inside a small, tight room. It's claustrophobic, and you feel pressured about being stuck inside, like you can't figure out what to do. You try a solution, but you have no success. You ask somebody about the problem, but they don't have an answer, not a single answer. But after all that struggle, you're stuck. You feel trapped inside that there's no way out. But then an idea came along. So you just take a deep breath, think deeply into the problem, and say, hey, I know I can't escape from the problem, but I can escape through it. Perhaps there's a simple way of thinking outside the box just by working through the problem. And you can open yourself out just by working through. To me, this is a way of handling daily obstacles and everyday challenges that I have experienced. And I like to think of it as going through the back door. It took me a while to realize is that my brain works differently from everybody else's. And what could be easier for most people can be very challenging for me. And what I had to do was just figure out a way how to get to the same result as everybody else's, but in a different way. And I struggle with this. Most people would tend to just use their own rooms that they were stuck at, and they would just simply walk through the front door. But the front door doesn't always make sense to me, so I have to use the back door. And once I acknowledge this concept, finding solutions to everyday problems can become easier for me. Everything that I see in my life is like a puzzle that needs to be put together. And I study the pieces and figure out which fits in the one piece of the other and never stop until it's done. Every day in my life is filled with facing challenges and everyday obstacles. And it helps to progress through these challenges. And I just need to find the time to find the back door, just by using the back door concept. And admittingly, it's never easy. And it takes guts to progress through these challenges. For example, I was never afraid of being myself until after I graduated high school. When I was young, I was a shy and introverted kid who liked to draw during class. This is one of my coping mechanisms I used to help with the stress of school. And after a while, I eventually met new friends, and I introduced them to my interest in ships and art. They were amazed at my work, and they allowed me just to blend in with others. And I even got to talk to many people about many things, and we even got to have a normal conversation. In fact, communication is another way to help me cope with my diagnosis, because it allowed me to learn what it takes just to relate with others. In fact, I even learned what it takes just to joke around without getting carried away. And then right after graduation, I felt alone after I saw my friends going their own ways. It's like I felt lost all over again, like I felt trapped, like I'm being locked inside the room again. It's like I needed to find a back door. I needed to find my way back out. But that is until I started college, just by experiencing adult life for the very first time. For the first few years, I learned how to manage time, work with others, work independently, and manage stress and anxiety. For instance, I learned time management. After my classes would end, I would immediately head to the computer lab just by work with my assignments. And I would just think about what I've just learned from every lecture I took. And then I would spend a whole day just by working on one assignment into the other. And after this is all done, I would just go outside, just take some deep breaths, and just give myself a few breaks. It's worth the struggle, and I even learned what it takes just to go through college life on my own. In fact, for what I've experienced, college was just like a whole campus for adults, and it's all work and no play. And it's hard to make friends. And I barely made any until I got into meeting a few people between 2012 and 2014. And they became the potential keys to unlocking my door. But after they graduated, they all came and went. And it's like I'm lost all over again. So, to this day, I'm still looking for that key. During my life during college, it was all different for me, and I struggled with them. It's like going through lots of lectures and going through a lot of courses and lab work full time was very, very stressful for me. But I learned how to manage that. And working with others is quite different for me. And I learned what it takes is just to work with those situations. One of my coping mechanisms I already use is to cope independently, which is another key. And one of them being is that I would just go back home and just take a nap with my feline partner in crime. And there's nothing wrong with that. I believe that it just applies to an after-work power nap. And I'm sure it can work so well for many of you. And another one of the coping mechanisms I already use is my art therapy. And in my whole life, I've drawn lots of ships at sea, some self-portraits of mine, and I've worked with some landscapes that are inspired by studio logos, which they allow me to cleanse my creativity and my thinking mechanism. In fact, art is my kind of therapeutic medication that I enjoyed having. It just tastes good. And not only that, it just feels good for me. So what does it take to just learn about being diagnosed with autism while facing adult life? Well, life is just about going through so many obstacles in life. Life outside of our own rooms can be fun at first, but it can be a challenging place to be. And there are 3 keys that I've learned just by walking through the back door. And here are the few things I wanted to show you. The first key is making the right decisions just for you. Life is all about making the right decisions that can be based on learning experiences and our past mistakes. I learned these things the hard way in my life, especially like from my past jobs I ever took. It can be very difficult just to understand at first. It just takes a while for me to learn from others. And it just takes a lot for me to just feel that I were to give myself confidence just by getting the work done. And this is just how I were to feel good about the way I feel true about myself. If you want to put yourself out here in the real world, give yourself a chance to try some new things. And just by communicating with others, and just by being true to yourself, and just by making good decisions. The second key is everything will gradually come together. I have like so many goals in life that I wanted to accomplish, and they're not always that complicated as, to finish. It's just that they just need to be planned out, and they need to be made in order just to make it happen. But it just takes time. In fact, being an adult with autism is all about developing yourself for the better. And one of the many important aspects is to be patient. We all have our own sets of goals, and I wanted to work with them myself, but it just takes a lot of patience, and they just take time. And the third key is, it's okay to be yourself. Whatever you're high functioning or not, or whatever that you're working at a dream job or at a regular job, whatever you have high self-esteem or not, it's good to be yourself, and that's okay too. I have like so many struggles in life that I've taken upon of, and I live a struggling life, and taking part of challenges is what helps me progress through these challenges just by moving forward. And this is how I were to work myself with so many ways, just by figuring out what it takes to open the back door and just by moving forward. And so what have I learned just by coping with daily life? I use the back door as a coping mechanism just to find ways just to give creative solutions just by opening the door. I just simply walk through the doorway just by doing some critical thinking. One of the examples I have just by accomplishing my own goals is to drive a car. And I have like a series of obstacles that I've ever faced. The first obstacle that I ever had was the official computer test. It made me dreadful at first, but I studied the booklet and I took the computer test the first time, and I didn't pass. So my first assumption is that I would have just basically just used my method just to read the booklet all over again. And so I just took it again, just by wearing headphones. However, there's something wrong with the entire computer test that really irks me. The way I took it is that it just feels a bit distracting to me, because you got a whole background of noise coming around at the DMV, whenever they announce your number, and there's like a lot of kids whining. Don't you hate when that happens? Since I didn't pass the second time, I would just come up to the front desk and see if they ever have a written form. And so there was. So I made my third attempt, and I'd written down the correct answers, and wouldn't you know it, I earned my instructional permit. And I used it for my driving lessons, which is my second obstacle. I met my driving instructor, and we painstakingly went through so many aspects about driving. And what I did was, I learned what it takes just to watch for traffic signs, obey traffic laws, watch over people, and I let the pedestrians pass, and I even parallel parked in Chicago style. And I just parked with a tab of butter. A dab of butter, excuse me. To me, driving is just like riding on a bicycle. And it just takes a while just to pedal myself through a way with a lot of people like right beside me. I just need to watch over people just by going through a distance. Go over distance, that is. And after the first 5 weeks, I felt pretty confident just by knowing what it takes just to drive and just by having my own distance just by driving a car. And so for the third obstacle that I ever faced is the official road test. So as I felt really confident, I felt pretty good and I felt that I'm ready. But the question is, am I ready just to walk through the back door? Well, I met my observer and we even got over the first important aspects about the control panel right in front of the wheel. And I would just remind myself that I'm just going out for a Sunday drive in my mom's car with full confidence. And so after I drove out to the DMV, I felt pretty confident. I parallel parked. I drove through traffic just by watching over people, and I went through traffic signs and signals. And I even just looked through a lot of traffic laws and all the signs coming in. And wouldn't you know it, I officially passed. I got my license. It felt good just by walking through the back door, just by bringing full confidence. And I just made my biggest effort just by driving a car. And if you want to put yourself out here, go for it. Try something new. And you'll figure out what it takes is just to make it happen. Just by moving forward, walk through the back door, and learn some new things just by challenging yourself. And here are the 3 OKs that I wish to give away. The first OK is, having time alone is okay. Don't be afraid just to tell others that recharging your battery is a need for yourself. Just find yourself some time just to recuperate your mind and your energy. Learning what it takes is just to feel better about yourself. And you can thank yourself for that. And it's okay to be an introvert, and it's great to make that kind of effort. And the second okay is not having a car, not having a significant other, or not having a place of your own is okay. I even learned what it takes is just to drive through a car, and I officially got my license, even though I don't have a car yet, and that's okay. I learned what it takes is just to make a very good relationship, and I even learned what it takes is that it involves a lot of risk-taking, and it does involve a lot of time and effort just to love someone. And to have what it takes is just to bring heart to you, not only yourself, but just to be with someone that you adore. I even live with my family, and I'm not ashamed to admit it. I still live with my mom as we speak, and I think it's good the fact that I got to take advantage on supporting my family. Not only that, just to pay the bills, eat, sleep, cook, walk the dog, all of that. And I would just remind myself that it's okay that you live at home. There's always a lot of time in the world that you could definitely save money just by moving out of your own. And the third and final okay that I believe is the most important to me is not meeting a goal is okay. As I said before, I have so many goals in life that I wanted to accomplish. And not only it just takes time, but it's okay if it's left unfinished. It doesn't just happen just by signing a contract or just by signing an application. That is one of the first steps just by making it happen. And even so, I think it's okay that if it's left unfinished, and even though that it doesn't really happen right away, always just remind myself that it'll happen soon. I just need to be patient. But tonight, I did accomplish one thing. I just walked through the back door, just by speaking in front of you, with my enthusiasm with everyday life. In the real world, everybody thinks differently. We all have our own solutions that we gotta embrace with ourselves. Even if it's every day that we even feel broken, there's always plenty of time just to fix yourself, just by walking through the back door and just by pushing forward. I believe that most of you just simply walk through the front door just by simply figuring out what it takes just to solve problems and just by figuring out what it takes to go through daily life without a single issue. People like me, however, I would just simply use the back door just by finding creative solutions to complicated situations and so many complicated obstacles that I would have trouble facing. And it's okay that you struggle with this. We each have our own struggles, and we need to have each other just by supporting one another. So as I said, find your back door. It'll be a way just by finding the key just to unlock ourselves, just by finding creative solutions to everyday life. And this is just what it takes. And that's the important way, just to go straight forward by walking through the back door. I'm Craig St. Clair, and I want to thank you for taking part in my journey.